What is up? What is up? How's everybody doing? Excellent. Well, it is a pleasure today to be speaking with you guys, to be chatting. It's been a while. It's been a long while. Let me first say that this is exciting. This is going to be the first, I guess you can say, installment episode of what I'm calling Poets, Prophets, and Polymaths. And so the goal for this particular live stream that I will love to do, I would like to do on Fridays around this time, maybe vary every now and then, is to talk all things creativity, vocation, and how people are using their talents and their skills to change the world. So I'm excited about that. I'll have many folks who will be interviewed. I will have poets. I will have prophets, religious figures, creatives, but people also who are just doing great things and with their crafts. So before I get more into today's particular episode, let me talk more about this particular series. I'm excited because I think this is kind of like a nexus of where I exist. You know, the intertwining of the faith world with the culture and how we take and use our gifts and talents to shape the culture for the blessing of the world. So we will be talking. I will be talking for about 30 minutes, and then for the last 30 minutes, I will ask questions. We will engage. I will look at comments as I'm seeing comments and come through already. What's up to my man Hamilton, to my brother Brutukas. Thank you for the love on Black is Heaven. And shout out to Jermaine in Texas. So we will be doing this once again. Prophets, Poets, and Polymaths. We will try to do this every Friday moving forward. I'm excited, but hopefully there will be themes. There will be interviews. There will be people I will engage with. There will be subject matters. Sometimes I'll address a cultural issue that is pertinent. Other times we'll probably cover a book. I don't know. These are things that I really want there to be a lot of engagement with my particular audience, and a way for us to build a community of thinkers, creatives, and doers. People who understand the times and know what to do with it. The Bible talks about the people of Issachar, as David was, creating an army of folks to be the Lord's agents in society, and the people of Issachar were the men who knew the times and knew what to do with it. And what that means to me is that they understood the cultural moment. They understood the zeitgeist of what they were dealing with, but they also knew what to do. They weren't just people who were head knowledge. They knew how to make those things practical and change the world. And my encouragement is that we will build people that will do such things. And so always taking recommendations of folks to engage, to listen to interview. So, real quickly, let me talk about, one, I am in a room, and there's a reason why I'm in this particular room. Well, the goal was to interview my brother, and who is a pastor of the church that I attend in Atlanta, Georgia, who is also over a new initiative that I am partnering with, that I have joined, called MyBLVD. And so we are in this space. I was going to interview him today about what MyBLVD is, the initiative that I am a part of. However, he's not here. And so today is just going to be me kind of talking about the things that I'm interested in, the things that I'm partaking in. And after that, we'll answer some questions as do they need to be believers? No, they do not. They do not need to be believers, but they have to be people who are thinking critically, as I'm sure you're asking this because you know some people who are probably doing good work. And so, yes, people who are doing good work, people who are excited about bringing change, but I would prefer people who, they don't even have to believe exactly what I believe, but people who are leaning on an aspect of Christian faith, if that makes sense. They can be Orthodox, they could be Catholic, they could be Protestant, evangelical, whatever. So yes, I have been on a break for about a year and a half. Has it been that long? Yeah, so working on myself, working on my soul, working on who I think I need to be in order to be a better individual for the public space. And one, I'll just encourage all of us to do that kind of introspective work, to be the kind of individuals who are not only just socially healthy, but mentally and spiritually healthy as well. There's a lot of people out there who have platforms who just spout things, who just regurgitate information, and they're doing it because in a lot of ways there's a lot of social benefits for doing that. But at the same time, you can do that and you can be completely fooling people and not be spiritually healthy and socially healthy. So I've been saying I took a break because there was some sin in my life that I needed to deal with. Repented of that sin, dealt with it, and still repenting and still growing. Obviously not perfect, still getting there, still growing, but doing that in the context of community, doing that with people that I love, but also doing it professionally by getting counseling. And in the process, one of the things that I've learned about myself is that oftentimes doing these platforms, the stages, the speaking can be intoxicating, and it can do something to you emotionally. It can do something to your soul, to your thinking. And you can start thinking of yourself more highly than you ought to. And the Bible is clear, don't do that. So in the process of stepping away from the stage, one of the things that happened, it was an opportunity that was brought to me to join a team called MyBLVD. MyBLVD is basically a group of individuals, a network that is trying to help leaders thrive where they live, work, and worship. Now that's pretty ambiguous. What does that mean? Ultimately, what we're trying to do is if you are a leader, and it doesn't matter if you're a church leader, marketplace leader, or a leader in your household or in your community, we're trying to say, do you have a boulevard? What is that boulevard? And how are you taking initiative to change lives in that boulevard? And if you are struggling, we have resources. We would love to consult, coach, and give you online tools in order for you to thrive. And so that is called MyBLVD. I realized that I should have probably put this in the thread. There goes the website, mybldvd.co. And I want to play a real quick video for you guys so you can kind of see a little bit about what we are doing at MyBLVD. And then I'll kind of get into why I think it's helpful, why I think it's dope, and how it will benefit people.
Good morning to all the leaders, the ones who recognize the obstacles that the day brings, the limited resources, the complexity of the city context, the tension between neighbors, and the limitations in yourself. However, even with those challenges before you, you still wake up every day and work to make disciples. In your home, in your church, in your work, in your community, you do the best with what you have. When you feel disconnected from your work and relationships, you grind. When you feel like you're leading alone, you grind. And when you feel like you're on the border of burnout, you grind. But you can do more than just grind. You can thrive where you live, work, and worship. To the faithful leaders who want to embrace presence, to the organizational leader who is navigating division, to the everyday Christian who wants to lead with passion, you desire to be whole for yourself, for your church, for your community. Have clarity framing your worldview. Learn how to discern with empathy. Know how to speak with grace. Feel your feelings without despair. Live with burden. Act with intention. Walk with confidence in your context. Bring your complete self and be present on your boulevard.
Yeah, so that's MyBLVD. That's a general breakdown of what we do at MyBLVD. It's basically, man, if discipleship is still a thing, if you guys still are Christians, if people still believe that Jesus is Lord and that he has called his church to change people, amen, then you must believe in discipleship. It's not an option. Discipleship is not an option. And we need to be trained in order to affect the world. And I'm not just talking about inside the church. I'm not just talking about in a spiritual relationship. I'm talking about in general. And what we're trying to do is give people resources through our online courses called City Syllabus to help train people to love God deeply. If you go to that website, MyBLVD.co, there's a link up on the top. It'll say City Syllabus, and there are courses. And now let me say this. It's about $25 a month. I'm trying to convince them to go down a little bit, but hey, it is what it is. But let me tell you, there's one course on there called Known 360. It is taught by my brother and a gentleman named Wesley. And I think it is amazing. It basically is teaching you how to have emotional health. And a lot of us are not, we don't have high emotional intelligence. We read the scriptures, we are very theological, we know a lot, we can read Twitter, we can read Facebook, we can read articles all day, and we can have information, but we don't translate that into wisdom, or it doesn't help our emotional health because we don't know how to feel. And oftentimes I've realized that I, in the past, have been angry for reasons, but I think that on the surface, it's this, but on the reality and the deep down in my heart, it's something much deeper. And it teaches us how to be known, how to get to know not only ourselves, man, but how to communicate our emotions in a very healthy way. So I would recommend that. I'll put the links in a second. So that's a little bit of what we do at Known 360. At Boulevard, there's courses like Known 360. I, your boy Sho Baraka, will be teaching a class that will be available in July. I will be doing a webinar very soon on June 12th. And this webinar is going to be based a lot of what my book was talking about. And if you're not familiar with my book, then I would say go get my book. He saw that it was good, okay? But the webinar is going to be called Is It Good? And it's going to be talking about how we can use our gifts for the flourishing of our communities. But it's also going to be a very practical resource, because I've noticed that there are a lot of people who may have worked in a church at one point in time or worked in ministry, and they want to transition into the marketplace, but they either don't have the tools, the resume is terrible, they don't know how to interview anymore. And so my brother, who has worked in corporate America for 2 decades and who teaches and trains people how to interview, how to do resumes, how to just make yourself presentable, he's going to help me teach this class to you for people who are trying to transition maybe from either being out of the work field for a long time, or people who have transitioned from, like, maybe all you have is a theology degree or an MDiv, or you've worked in ministry for the last 10 years and you want to go into another space. I promise you, these tools and these resources will be a benefit. And this is the kind of stuff that we want to do at My Boulevard. It's not just teaching you theological principles. It's teaching you how those theological principles can be applied in the everyday. I keep touching my sweater. Just a quick shout out. If y'all don't know, this is a custom made cross movement sweater. I mean, you know. Yeah, and we got to, complete side note. We got to start shouting out our heroes, the people who pioneered for us, show them love. You know, people aren't perfect, but just show them love. And this is me just showing honor to the cross movement. Deuce is one of my heroes, still a mentor to this day. So that's it. Side note. So let me go ahead and type this real quick in the chat. The city syllabus is what I just got done talking about. My Boulevard. I'll be teaching a webinar. You can actually, I think there is let me copy this real quick. Copy. You can actually check out some descriptions of the webinar right here, and I just typed it in. So go check it out. You can sign up now. So, yeah, let's go ahead and shift from so that's one thing I'm doing. The other thing I'm doing is, this past week I released a video, Black is Heaven. And you can watch that on YouTube or my Instagram or different places. But it is in collaboration with Our Daily Bread, released a documentary called Juneteenth, Faith and Freedom. And I produced some songs for that particular documentary, which has won awards. It was just on PBS. It's an amazing documentary. It's very Christ-centered, I think, very church-focused. It's not about guilt tripping, although Juneteenth should bring some shame and guilt to the history of our country, but yet it's still very hopeful, very aspirational, and that's what I love about this documentary, and it's very redemptive. And so, all that to say, if you have an opportunity, check that out. Juneteenth, Faith and Freedom. So yes, that's another thing I'm doing. I am in the process of writing a musical for theater in Houston. So be on the lookout for that. Maybe next year. I am super excited about it. I'm hesitant to say that I'm making new music, but I am, but I don't want there to be expectations of when that stuff is going to be released. So, no, it's not only on PBS. You can actually watch the documentary on Facebook. What am I saying? YouTube. If you type in Juneteenth Faith and Freedom, you can watch it on YouTube as well. So, My Boulevard. So yes, quick recap. Working with My Boulevard, an extraordinary, excellent. I see my brother Wesley Price just jumped on. I just bragged about you, Wesley, talking about Known 360. If you were here, it would be great. You can kind of give a pitch, but it is a great tool and resource to give people a better understanding of how to deal with their emotions. But if you go to My Boulevard, there's coaching, there's consulting. Here, I missed this one. If you are a pastor out there or someone who desires to be a pastor and you need to understand, you need some relevant resources, you need some help. People are leaving the church by the droves today. People are discontented with their faith, they're deconstructing, they're doing a lot of things, some very healthy, some very unhealthy. Look, I understand. Pastoring is very difficult. I did it for about 4 or 5 months, and it wasn't easy. And so, but if you are an individual out there who needs a group of people to, just collaborate with, to encourage you, My Boulevard also does that through these cohorts. And you can find more information on there with My Boulevard. So, for those people who are joining late, let me go ahead and give a recap. This is Poets, Prophets, and Polymaths. I will be doing this every Friday. Hopefully there will be interviews I'll be conducting with people that I admire, people who are doing good things in repairing the world, the broken world, with their gifts, their talents, and their time. Sometimes it'll just be me ranting and asking, engaging. Sometimes it'll be me tackling a current event or some sort of issue that I think is prevalent within culture and society. And then hopefully for the last few minutes, we can dialogue, answer some questions, and get into it. So that is that. Every Friday, we're going to try to do this sometime around this lunch hour. I know it's not ideal for a lot of people, and I don't expect for hundreds of people to be watching at a time. But the reality of it is it's probably the best time for me because I got a family and I got a life. So during this hour is probably best, but it's always good. You can watch it later. So yes, My Boulevard. I have a webinar next week, in 2 weeks, or June 12th. Going to be engaging on how to repair a broken world with your vocation through creativity and imagination, but also helping people who've been out of the work field or people who've been in the ministry space and you're thinking about going into the marketplace. And this is something that I experienced. I realized that I've been a quick example. You know what? I'm not going to give the tools right now. You're going to have to join the webinar June 12th. Link is in the bio. And I'm going to give you all the hacks that I did. I had recently had an interview with the Atlanta Hawks. Got deep into the interview process. Did not get the job, unfortunately. But a lot of the tools and the resources that my brother gave me were quite effective, especially for somebody who's been known as a rapper. And you would think, like, how does someone who's a rapper go into some sort of like a community engagement position? And it's all about trying to be able to take those particular resources and tools that you've had as a rapper, and how do you make those things applicable for the job interview you have now? And my brother Sean Sorrells does a wonderful job of breaking down and teaching you how to make those things applicable. So that's what we're going to be doing in the webinar as well. Very practical steps, tools, and tips, but we're also going to deal with a philosophical and an ethical way of how we should approach work and how we should approach creativity. Link is in the bio. So that is that. We got about 37 minutes. Let me see. Will you have any prophets on? Now, it depends on what you mean by prophets. I'm using these terms loosely, right? Poets is generally people who are, I think, creative. I'm using that term as a proxy for creativity. People who are literary agent, people who are who operate in literary space, rappers, artists, creatives, poets. So think of it like that. And then prophets, I use that as a proxy for people who are just speaking truth to the world. It doesn't have to be someone who's actually operating in the gift of foresight or foreknowledge, you know what I mean? But somebody who speaks truth, as oftentimes we look in the Bible, and the prophet is someone who is just speaking truth to the people. And so, yes, I will have many prophets on, people who are speaking truth. And if there are actual people who are prophetic, I will have them on. But if the prophecy doesn't come true, we got to take them outside the city gates and stone them. So then we will have polymaths, and polymaths is just a fancy word. I love to call myself a polymath because I realized I do a lot of things, and I just didn't know how to describe myself until I met a brother, Dr. Timothy Dalrymple, who is now the president of Christianity Today. And he had a company called Polymath. And I remember I was like, what does that mean? And he broke it down. And I was like, that is me. It is basically an individual who does many things, who's multifaceted. It's more of an ancient term of someone who was an artisan who practiced many different skill sets. And so for me, I find myself to be a polymath, somebody who does different things and tries to do them for the glory of God. So that is it. Let me encourage you guys real quick before I start answering questions. And please feel free to start throwing some questions in there, and we will engage. And then I'll kind of close it out with some little fun things that I like to call cultural artifacts, or etc. We'll probably change the name anyway. Here we go. I know for about a year and a half or 2 years, I was disconnected from the church. And so, and because I was disconnected from the church and I wasn't in my scriptures, I wasn't seeking God's face, you feel the effects of that lifestyle. And I felt it and I lived it, and it was fun in the moment. And then I realized, very similar to the prodigal, I was in a pigsty, and I looked up and I said, I am far away from home, bro. And I need to return to my father's house. And upon returning to my father's house, I felt a bit of shame. Oftentimes you feel shame because you know you've lived or done things that you shouldn't have done. But then the beautiful thing about the Father's arms being extended is that there's grace, and that there's forgiveness, and that there's love, and there's redemption. And I pray for those who are listening that you don't give up on the church. No institution is perfect, and I realize that the church should have more weight on it because it is an institution that says it speaks and operates under the auspices of our Creator and our Heavenly Father. And in some ways, they should hold more weight than educational institutions or financial institutions. But the one thing that I find myself really interested in is that many of us will boot the church, will get rid of the church because of somebody who's messy or something that happens in the church. You're like, I ain't going to church no more. But the banks crash, and we still put our money in banks. We still invest in Bitcoin. We still put our money in stocks when they go up and down all the time. Education has failed us. Historically, education has been, I guess you can say deplorable at times. There are many institutions. Some of us don't trust, the medicinal institutions, or my mind just went. But basically, pharmaceutical institutions. The whole rave about vaccine, non-vaccine, or all that stuff. But here's the thing: all institutions fail because we're humans. But I truly believe that God's main way to change and transform this world and individuals is through His church. And the best way to do that is by being connected to people. Now, I'm not saying you have to be a part of a large church, but what I'm saying is be a part of community. Acts chapter 2 is a very, very, very poignant text that talks about how these folks gathered together in homes and in buildings, and they studied the scriptures together, they prayed, and they broke bread. And right now we are going through MyBLVD. We have a podcast that we just started, and one of the things we're talking about are the myths of discipleship. And oftentimes, and we talk about this one myth of discipleship, is that discipleship is just simply a Bible study. The reality of it is it's not. Like, you have to do life with people. You need to invite them into the everyday activities so they can see how much of a wretched sinner you are, but yet still God forgives and you are redeemed, and how you act and operate when you get cut off on the freeway, when you're shopping and somebody says something rude to you, how you interact. Because if I sit down with you and all I do is teach you scripture and how to understand scripture, I'm not making a whole Christian. I am making a person who is articulate in teaching, and that's it. But I want to teach people how to love other folks. I want to teach them how to be good friends. I need to teach people how to be good brothers and sisters, how to be good children, how to be good parents, how to be good husbands and wives, how to be good employees. And you can't do that with just a Bible study context. You do that by building relationships with people outside of the context of just doing one-on-one discipleship. And so if you check out My Boulevard podcast, it's called Integrate Podcast. It's on all platforms. We are going through some of the myths of discipleship, and some of those myths are that discipleship is only for believers. That's one myth. I don't think that was published yet. But anyway, Bible study or discipleship is only for church growth. Bible discipleship is only one-on-one. That's another thing. The reality is that discipleship is more than just a one-on-one relationship. It is the responsibility of the whole church, of community. And this is why I say you got to stay in community. You got to be connected to the body of Christ, is because if you come hang out with me, and even if I take you around and I teach you how to be the best Sho Baraka, the reality of it is you're going to get all of my strengths, but you're also going to get all of my weaknesses. And one-on-one discipleship that is taught in many different parachurch organizations, it's good, but it's not the best, nor is it the only way in which we should disciple. You need to be a part of a church. And if your church is not making disciples, you need to find a new church. Clearly. Yeah, I already shouted out the Cross Movement t-shirt. My brother Wado. Our Freddie Sweater crew. And so I just want to encourage you guys to stay connected to the church. It's messy. But it's messy like Lionel Messi bars. Give it to me. For those soccer fans, Lionel Messi in Miami. That's a whole nother. One of these days, I'm going to do a little spiel about soccer. I'm a soccer fan. I'm afraid to admit that I am a Manchester City fan, and they just won the treble, but we're going to move on. Anyway, you are messy. You're a messy individual, and the moment you enter into relationship with other people, you bring your mess. The beauty of the cross, the beauty of fellowship is that we are to sharpen and encourage one another as we grow and as we move on. So, be connected to the fellowship, bro. Be connected to the community. I said this in one of the videos I posted recently. I said it is better to deal with the messiness of the church and the messiness of community than to operate in the wilderness alone. Because when you're in the wilderness, it seems cool, it seems fine, but eventually your sin and your life is going to catch up with you, and you're going to need people to lean on, right? I was saying lean on me, but can't do that right now. Anyway, so questions, thoughts, anything. All right, before we get into let me see what else I had on the city syllabus. So I talked about my webinar that's happening on June 12th. It's going to be about how do we see our work, our creativity, and the things we do for God being useful to repair a broken world. But also, how do you help people who have been out of work, or how do we get people who've been in ministry vocation for so long and they're wanting to transition into the marketplace? What are some tips, tools, and resources that can make them more viable candidates for jobs that they want to apply for? And so, like I said, I'll have my brother who's worked in this space who's worked in the hiring space, who's worked in corporate America for 2 decades now. And it's crazy. When I say 2 decades, I realize how old I am. You see his gray right here? Still beautiful, but I'm getting old, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm embracing it. I love it. My wife told me I couldn't dye my hair anymore, so I couldn't act like a young dude. So anyway, that was it was just me just realizing there's a video going around that's pretty viral. My wife posted it on her social media page, and literally it has over 1 million views, and it's me trying to jump a fence. And all I'm gonna say is that I'm humbled. And but real talk, I can clear that fence. That's all I'm saying. Just watch the video and you see. I didn't quite give it the effort I should have. I didn't have the right attire on, but I'm old. All that to say, I'm old. So anyway, I am hosting that webinar June 12th. I will also be continuing to work with My Boulevard. As you can see, this is some of the signage. My brother was supposed to be on with me today to do this interview to talk about what he does, why My Boulevard, but he's a hater and he had a lunch meeting. He forgot to tell me. Anyway, he's a loser. But City Syllabus is a online resource. It's like an online course where you can go on there, you can sign up, you pay a subscription, and there are courses, and we're populating it every month. Every month there's a new course that's on there that helps you to become better leaders in your context. The one that I say that I think it's worth the price of admission alone is Known 360. It is amazing. It is getting you to be acquainted with your emotions and your feelings in a way that I don't know of many Christian resources that are out there doing that. And it's cheaper than going to a counselor and getting it. So there you go. That's the pitch. But there's another resource on there that I think that is amazing. It is called Maximize the Moment. And my brother is teaching it. And it's basically for people like me who have grand ideas, who have all these goals in life, but are disoriented and usually don't accomplish things. One tool that I will encourage you guys, I for the last year or so, I've been reading a lot of practitioner tools or books that help me to be a better employee, leader, entrepreneur. And there's one resource that I've been swearing by, and it's a podcast, it's a book, and it's an assessment. It's called Working Genius. If you have the time or the money to pay for just the assessment, which is $25, and then dig into the podcast, I promise you, you will become a better leader, or a better individual. It'll help your marriage, it'll help your friendships, it will help you accomplish goals. And so that's the kind of stuff we want to do. And so my brother and some of us are getting certified in even that, and being able to teach people how to better understand how they work and how they're better equipped to be entrepreneurs, leaders, etc., etc. So this is Poets, once again, Poets, Prophets, and Polymaths, and we'll be doing this every Friday. I will have interviews. This is the first one. I'm excited. I don't see any questions, which is cool. Working Genius was one. Yes, Known 360 was another. So the resource, the online resource, once you go to myboulevard.com, is called City Syllabus, like a city, obviously, but a syllabus in school. And you should be able to click the top link. And sorry I missed it. Look at this dude. No, don't get off my thread, brother. And so So other than that is a lot about My Boulevard. Maybe we'll revisit that. But if you go to my website, there we go. Once again, my website is up and it's new, it's live, barakaology.com or shobaraka.com. And you can see and stay abreast of all the things that I'm doing right now. And on that page, you'll learn about My Boulevard. You'll learn about the new video that I just released, Black as Heaven. You learn about some of the interviews that I've done. You can watch old videos, new interviews, just a lot of stuff. But also subscribe to the mail list, the email list, so we can contact you and you can be up on everything that I'm doing. So lastly, if there are no questions, I want to talk about a few things. I dropped the question above. He said he dropped the question above. All right, let me go. Will it be available afterwards? What do you mean, will it be available afterwards? What exactly? That's a question to K Washington on YouTube. I'm in Italy and I may miss it. Oh, you trying to stone on this, K? You on Italy. Come on now. You know you in Cleveland, Ohio. You ain't in nobody's Italy. Let me see. Okay, so Noble asked the question. It says, recommendations for a person new to town finding and getting connected to a decent church. What church? What city are you talking about, bruh? And he said, is PD problem coming? What are you talking about? Well, Noble, I need you on YouTube. I need you to, what city? Okay, I believe you're in Washington. You don't have to prove it. Look, don't be ashamed. Sis, you are, bro, I don't know, okay? You enjoy Italy. Enjoy Italy. I'm pretty sure it's a beautiful place. One of the countries in Europe. That one of many countries I've never been to. But as far as Noble's question, I would need to know what city. If you're talking about Atlanta, first of all, here's my thing about recommending churches to people. Just go to a church. And then, stay there for a while if you don't like it. Because I've stopped telling people to come to my church. I go to Blueprint Church in Atlanta. I think it's a really good church. But I also know that it's it has its issues. And I know people who've left the church who think it has its issues. So the thing about churches is very similar to relationships. There are people who love their spouse and you'll be like, well, I can probably never be married to that woman. And you're like, cool. I mean, I enjoy the relationship we have. I left Blueprint for, I think it was 2 years, and eventually came back because as I was trying to find another church, the reality is no matter where you go, you're going to find churches that have issues. And I said, I'd rather deal with a church that I know the issues that it has and just try to be a resource and tool. But here's the other thing. We go to churches oftentimes as consumers, and we got to stop being consumers in churches. You have to go not only to consume, but to also be a blessing. If you see problems in a particular church, you try to speak to it. And if there are folks who aren't allowing you to be integrated into the life of the church, then yes, I will say that's a place where you don't need to be. If the church is not preaching the gospel, unadulteratedly preaching the gospel in a very clear way, if there's no desire for people to grow in community, if there's no ways to connect with other people in the church, and if there seems to be no discipleship happening in that church, no outreach, no effort to try to impact the community, then I would say you don't need to be at that church. You need to leave and find another church. Now, if the church don't play hip hop music, if they sing, Maverick City versus Kirk Franklin, if they, the pastor gets up there and he tells jokes versus just being very stoic and serious, if they serve coffee in the front, if they show videos, I don't like the fact they trying to be too culturally relevant, all that stuff, you know what? That's your preference. Do it. That's what you do. Okay. Now, obviously, I know that there are some theological things that people believe, and if you can go on any church's website and you can see about, and you can just go peruse through what they believe and what they teach. And if you don't rock with it, don't go to their church. You can listen to past sermons. Don't go to their church. But I've learned that we make this a little too difficult. The beautiful thing, Tim Keller, rest his soul. One of the few pastors that I would, apart from the church that I go to, that I would listen to in my non-sermon Sunday free time, I guess you can say. He has this statement when he's talking about marriage. He says there's this idea that we use where we talk about the one. And he says, I don't believe in the one. You never marry the one. The person you marry is always the wrong person. But through the spiritual growth, through discipline, you become the right people. And through the practice of submitting yourself unto the Lord first, walking in the Spirit, and then being of like mind with the person you are partnering with, you can make it work. And I believe that to be the same thing for the church. All churches are the wrong church. I don't care what you're always going to go to the wrong church. But what makes it the right church is by you submitting yourself unto authority of the elders, the deacons, or whatever, and trying to say, are these the type of people that I can sit under their teaching, under their leadership, and as I serve under the Lord, can I walk with these people? Why do you think church hurt is so common today? Because the church hurts people. Thank you for that question, my brother Juan. The church hurts people, and people hurt people. Here's the reality. I think we talk about church hurt. The reality is no, it's you hurt. I hurt people. It's not just this ambiguous spirit that floats through a congregation and hurts people. It's human relationships that are manipulated that hurt people. So therefore, when I have a relationship with someone in the church and I ask them to do something and they don't want to do it, that creates conflict. And the fact that we don't know how to deal with conflict resolution. I think that's a societal thing, because it's so easy for us to disconnect with people because we don't have real human connections in a way that I'm speaking in hyperboles in some ways, but there is a sense of us being very virtual and disconnected and disjointed because of technology, that we don't deal with conflict well in our society. And it's so easy just to leave and do the next thing. You don't like your job. Well, there's a million jobs. I'll just leave and go to the next job. I don't like this church. If I don't like this relationship, I just divorce or go. Conflict resolution builds muscle. So conflict should build muscles. Conflict is a good thing, first of all. What we do with the conflict makes it bad or good. And I believe there's such a fleeing in our society, and I think we definitely need to protect and flee in some scenarios or situations. But I do feel like oftentimes we are just so culturally inundated with this idea of, well, I can just move on, that it kills the muscles with it. It atrophies the muscles in us to be able to deal with conflict in a good way. And so that's the reason why I think church hurt is so common, because somebody says something or does something. And oftentimes, yes, pastors and leaders need to be rebuked for the things that they do. Like they're not exonerated from being challenged, but it's a way in which we should do it. And then oftentimes the gospel offends people. The gospel in itself offends us. And sometimes what you call as church hurt is just the gospel telling the truth about your sorry, stanky self. And you got to accept that. But we don't want people to tell the truth about ourselves. Man, we are messed up people most of the time. It is only by the grace of God and by His Spirit that we walk in truth and righteousness. That doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means that, we got mess. And we got to acknowledge we got mess. And when the gospel is preached and when truth is told to us, we got to deal with that mess. Some people need to hear truth differently than other people. And I think pastors need to learn how to do that, and leaders need to learn how to do that. People who are truth tellers need to learn how to be better communicators to people who are struggling and wrestling with things. I do think pastors need to get counseling degrees, because so I pastored for about 4 to 9 months. I guess it just depends on what you call pastor. And one of the things I realized, I was often insecure in my position. And it's a long story on why I was pastoring, but just know I was pastoring at a church here in Atlanta as an interim pastor. And most of the work was counseling. And I would sit there and I would have these conversations, deep conversations with people, and realize, I don't think I'm qualified to to answer some of these questions, to deal with some of these things. Now, I can give scripture and I give wisdom, experiential wisdom, and et cetera. But I would often say, hey, you may need to talk to a Christian counselor, somebody who can guide you in a direction that is that has a professional. And one of the things I hope to do is to literally have some counselors on this show and talk to some counselors, because counseling, I'm not gonna say it saved my life, but in a lot of ways it added proper resources and tools for me to thrive in a way that I don't think I have been able to thrive before. So that was a rant. My man said Atlanta, the land of 1,000 churches, even in just a small town in the burbs, just basic things you should look for. I think I kind of shared those things, bro. Oh, yep, you said thanks for answering. Oh, so good. Amen, my man Noble. I think that's my man Noble who raps, I think, too. So at Emory, if I'm not mistaken, we were supposed to be getting lunch, but you flaked on me. Maybe I flaked on you. I don't know. Burrell said it best. The gospel is offensive because it deals with our offenses. Hey, Burrell's he's a genius and a good pastor as well. It takes discernment to know when you leave after doing all you can to help restore it. As yes, it does take discernment. Some places you do need to leave. Like if you're in the church and you feel like you've done all that you could do to submit, to be humble, to preach or speak truth to power and to the authority, and to call people to a particular issue. And if you feel that you've done all that you can and the humble posture that you've had, and yet and still these folks and their leadership are ignoring, it may not be sin issue in their life, but they're ignoring some of the pleas and the cries of the congregation, then yes, you probably need to leave. But I would also say before you leave, evaluate deeply or as much as possible your own heart to see, like, in what ways have I not attempted to reconcile the things that I'm calling them to reconcile. This is this idea that I've been wrestling with. Oftentimes, especially some of my friends who operate in the justice space, activists, politicians, we oftentimes call people to great acts of justice and reconciliation when we don't even call ourselves in our own relationships to do that. We'll ask for these great things for institutions, but we'll drop people who mistreat us at the drop of a hat. And it's, to me, I'm like, subtly hypocritical in some ways. That I get it. Like, institutions have a responsibility, and I do believe that their institutions can repent and repair in ways that they haven't. But don't call for institutions and great movements to repent and to repair things when you yourself aren't attempting to do that. So, yeah. So anyway, any other questions? I'm all for Christ and counseling, good theology and therapy. Thanks for sharing that. Amen. Can you talk more about the motivation and inspiration of what I call the interludes? And he saw it was good. Come on, somebody bought my book. Carla. Carla Draffin. Okay, Carla. Look. This is one of the things that I love. So the interlude, so let me just say, I wrote a book in 2021 called He Saw That It Was Good. You should buy it. You should definitely get it. And if you haven't got it yet, you can buy. I think it's on sale right now in some spaces. For $199, I think, the digital version. I think the digital version is on sale for $199, if I'm not mistaken. But He Saw That It Was Good. You can get the audiobook if you love listening to books. If you love reading, getting hardback, excellent. But in the book, it is basically my personal treatise to theology, ethics, and the work and creative space. How do we tell stories? How do you work? How does that stuff bring about justice? How do you work with other people who don't have similar views as you? This idea of sacred versus secular. I kind of touch on all of these things, understanding you as a human being. Well, those are about 5 or 6 chapters in the book, but in between the chapters, I have these interludes, these short stories, these poems, these different things that, I want to call them things, these different offerings, better yet, these creative offerings that I am probably the most excited about in the book. And she's asking the inspiration. Well, the inspiration behind it is, some of you guys may know that I'm a hip hop artist. But before I was a hip hop artist, I was a storyteller. When I was young, I used to write stories. I used to love writing stories, short stories. And then when I got into high school and college, I wanted to study filmmaking. So I wanted to be a filmmaker. But I've always loved hip hop. I always used to write raps and poems and stuff like that. But I never let go of this desire to be a novelist or to be a writer. And so this was my first attempt at publicly offering my skill set as a writer. And so in the future, I want to have people on this, this show, this series, who are writers, people who are novelists. I have a buddy who's an editor of a publishing company. And so I want to help you, give you guys the hacks on what are what are publishers looking for? How do you get connected to publishing to publishing companies? Is it best to self-publish or work with a published company? What are some of the things they're looking for? What are some of the tips and tools and trades and stuff like that? So anyway, I want to write novels, and so short stories, poems, choreo poems, just different parables. Those are the things I love. There's one called the Moon Man in my book, and that is actually an excerpt in some ways from a larger piece of work that I'm writing, that I won't say the title just now, that I've been working on for a few years, that I hope to publish one day. And so yeah, I love, C.S. Lewis was an inspiration, Chesterton, Phyllis Wheatley, Langston Hughes. These are people who not only wrote about the social conditions of their day or theological work, but also were very creative in their writing. And I think I'm that kind of person. I'm not just an individual who likes to address issues from an academic perspective. I love to do it from a creative approach, because I think oftentimes creativity disarms the engager. It gives the person a different vantage point or a different entry point into a subject matter, and then they're not as aggressive. You know, people, I often listen to musicians that I know that I wouldn't agree with their political views, or comedians, and it gives you a different paradigm to which to engage information. And so, you know, bless it. So yeah, I'm wondering how much of a delay is on this, because some of you guys are responding to stuff I've said a while ago. So anyway, so yeah. All right. So in the spirit of that, I got 9 more minutes. I'm gonna try to keep these things to an hour. There are some things that I want to do. I want to share some of the things that I've been engaging, right? Some cultural artifacts and things that I've loved. So if my brother was here, I would ask him, "Hey, bro, what book are you reading right now? What's something you're reading?" And so he would say a book. Well, for me, there's so many books that I'm engaging, because oftentimes the way I read is I'll read a bulk of a book, then move on, or I'll read a book physically, and then as I'm driving or working, I'll listen to a book, you know. And so I'm engaged in different works at different times. So one of the books that I am reading, are listening to, is Traction. It's a very old book, but it's basically a book for entrepreneurs and leaders who are running companies and trying to figure out, how do I best create environments for thriving amongst leaders, right? So a lot of us, well, I don't know who your age or whatever, but some of you guys may be leaders in companies, some of you guys may be leaders in churches, you may be business, entrepreneurs, small business owners. And let me tell you something, you need my brother wants to respond. I'm reading a lot of business books. Yes, and right now I'm talking about one called Traction. And Traction basically gives these 6 points of how to create effective books. So that's one book I'm reading. I just bought Paradise Lost. So that's the fiction that I'm getting in by Milton. I've read it probably 20 years ago, but I want to read it again because I love parables, or just kind of like remixes of biblical and theological work, or whatever I guess you could say. So I'm reading that right now. My current books is Why Am I Like This by Kobe Campbell, and The Color Purple. Color Purple, the movie. My oldest brothers, and so I want to have my oldest brother. We're going to interview you, Reggie, pretty soon. But go back, Color Purple, it looks like that. I don't know how I feel about them remaking the Color Purple movie. I'm just going to be honest with you, because it's just the nostalgia. I just have seen Whoopi Goldberg, you know what I'm saying, and Oprah. Do you do right by me? I just don't know, you know what I'm saying, Celia, you know what I'm saying, Suge Avery coming down singing. Now look, the one thing I will say is Fantasia's a bad woman. So I'm not mad at her singing, because she gonna kill it. She gonna tear it down. But it's hard for me to see another Suge Avery. That Suge Avery, she's the one and only. Can't, so I'm just ranting right now. Some of y'all probably don't even know what Color Purple is. I just realized as I get older and I throw these cultural references out here, there are people who are young and don't even know. Like, I have nephews, and my daughter is like 18, and nephews, and we talk, I'll say something, I'll be like, yeah man, Tribe Called Quest, and they be like, who? And I just want to slap them immediately. I'll be like, what's wrong with you? What have I done wrong to fail you that you don't know what do the right thing is? Huh? Have you ever seen a tape player? So, I failed. I think it was 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, my daughter, I was doing an Instagram story with my daughter, and she on Instagram said that she didn't know who Denzel Washington was, and I just felt all types of embarrassed. I failed my daughter as a creative. I felt like I failed her as a black man, and I also felt like as a father. Like, how does my daughter not know who Denzel is? And so we immediately went home and watched 30 films. So can I kick it? So anyway, Lord is good. Poets, Prophets, and Polymaths. Every Friday we'll be doing this. So that's one thing. Man, I need to be losing track. Y'all gonna have to bear with me because I'll be doing this. Books. So yeah, that's a book. Cultural artifacts, music. Right now, as I said, I'm writing a musical, so I am listening to a lot of musicals. I'm reading a lot of fiction, trying to engage, and then also just trying to become a better leader in the discipleship space. So right now, our church is going through Ephesians, and so Ephesians has been a book that's been blessing me. Just trying to study, understand the area, the city of Ephesus. Yeah, I just got done. What TV show? Just watched the last season of Ted Lasso because I'm just obsessed with soccer. I don't even watch other sports the way I used to. I'm obsessed with soccer. So, I got 4 more minutes. Any questions? Sho, I would like to connect with you on New Wall Street Radio. Black Street. My bad. Black Wall Street Radio. All right, well, hit me up at info@barakaology.com, and we can connect. People put more expectations on others than on themselves. I don't know where that came from, Kay, but yes, they do. They put more expectations on other people than themselves. Yes, Ted Lasso is amazing. What team do I support? So here's the quick of it. Man City is the team that I have supported. But I realized the one thing that I struggle with, so I used to be a huge Lakers fan, right? And I would get anxiety attacks because the Lakers would lose a game. And so one of the things I realized is that I can no longer follow teams. I have to just follow the sport. And I know it's kind of hard, and it takes a little bit of the pageantry away from it. But the reality is in order for me to actually enjoy stuff, I just can't be as invested because I'll be stressing out. So I told myself after this season, I would just be a fan of international football and not necessarily be a fan, a supporter of one club. But Man City is the club, and it wasn't just because they won the treble. I've been following them for the last 10, 12 years. I got into soccer or football because of the World Cup in 2006. And then in 2010, I was in South Africa when the World Cup was happening. And there was a player, Robinho, who I feel like I got to justify what teams I love. But anyway, I want to do a video eventually or pretty soon on soccer and why I feel like soccer teaches the world wonderful things. And I'm going to do that because recently, if you've been paying attention, there's been a lot of racism around soccer. Especially in like Spain and Italy. Kay is in Italy right now. She's let us know that there's been a lot of, I guess you could say, news around teams like Real Madrid and Inter Milan and AC Milan and things like that. It was Valencia actually. The player was on Real Madrid. So anyway. Manchester is my hometown. What? I went to Manchester years ago and performed in Manchester with like Lecrae and Tadashi. It was beautiful. Manchester is a crazy place, and I had bought all kind of gear. I got a Yaya Toure jersey or a kit right now. So, yeah. So anyway, I got time for maybe 2 more questions. Any more questions? And then we're breaking up. We're gonna break out. No questions. Can end with a little music video. I have these music videos uploaded that live performances of, you know what? I'm going to play Fathers. I'll play Fathers for you guys. It's a live performance that I did of Fathers for a conference. And since Father's Day just passed, I will definitely play that as we close out. The Underground in Tampa. The Underground... was it the church underground you talking about? Like, what? I don't understand. Oh. All right. What's that show air you did? Oh, the show I did with Pittman. It's I don't know if it's airing. So I did a pilot. There you go. I recorded a pilot. I acted in a show called The PK. So basically, I play a pastor who adopted 1 million children, a multiracial family. I'm married to a Latino woman. And we have a multiracial family that we've adopted kids, and my church is in turmoil, and it's a comedy-ish drama dramedy, and I'm not sure when it's going to release. I'm not even sure. You would probably have to ask your buddy Pittman. So, yes, Tampa, can you perform We Could Be More at my wedding in December? Yes, in Malawi, if you fly me out. Yes, and pay me lots of money. Come to Central Florida. All right, I'll come to Central Florida. We'll do that. Micro churches. There we go. Oh, so yeah, I am familiar with the underground. I am familiar. All right, y'all. That is it. It has been a pleasure. Let me go ahead and say that lastly, I'm going to recap kind of what this is. Poets, Prophets, and Polymaths. We'll be doing this every Friday around this time. I'll have interviews with people. I'll be having discussions with people who are experts in their particular field. I'll be having discussions with poets who, as I said earlier, a proxy for people who are creative, people who are doing creative things. I'll have discussions with prophets, people who are religious leaders, people who are just keen to the Spirit of God and speaking truth to the culture. And then I'll have discussions with polymaths, people who are creative, or people who are great practitioners in their particular field. And because I don't want this just to be a theological thing, I want people to actually just walk away feeling like, man, I learned something, not only philosophical and theological, but also something that was very helpful for me to apply in my everyday practical life. All right. So that's what this is, Fridays. I won't always be in this wonderful room, which is the Boulevard room, aka a space in my church blueprint. But once again, Boulevard, myboulevard.co is a organization that is here that I'm partnering with, that I work for now, that we are coaching, consulting, and training. We have an online resource called City Syllabus. And you can go on there, subscribe to the monthly fee, and you'll get all different types of courses. And it's wonderful. It's helpful. I think it's worth every penny. And we're adding more resources all the time. We're looking for great content. So master classes, if you will, people who are teaching great things to help leaders thrive in their space. Also, I'll be teaching a webinar on June 12th. So there'll be more information on that. I'll have some promotion. You can look in some of the links that I posted. And I'll be teaching a master class around my book pretty soon. So later that month. So that is pretty much what this is about, my Boulevard. But doing great things. May the Lord bless you. May He protect you. May His face shine upon you and give you mercy and peace. And please stay with this. I will. This is going. Hey, I have the people around me now. Look. This is crazy. I'll just say this. This last year and a half has been brilliant because I've been doing a lot of reading and studying and introspective work. And I've learned a lot about how I work and how I do things. And so I will stay with this. Unless something happens to me in my life, I don't see this ending. So Fridays around this time, I can't say it's always going to be at 12 Eastern or 12:30 Eastern. It may be at 1, but it'll be somewhere around 11 to 1 o'clock every Friday. Because my wife and I have date mornings, so gotta get them dates on. All right, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, fathers.
If you're a father out there and you are trying to be excellent, celebrate yourself. This song's for you. Yeah. I'm a lover, a provider, I'm a teacher, I'm a fighter. I know there's grace for me even when I'm wrong. Through all my imperfections and all my indiscretions, I'ma love you till the day that I'm gone. How do you spell dad? It goes L-O-V-E. How do you spell dad? It goes L-O-V. Son, in the land of the passive, make sure that you man up. When introduced to a lady, it's always proper to stand up. Never talk behind the back of someone you're not a fan of. And when the cops approach you, you might have to put your hands up. Respect all people and show honor to the king. No matter what they think, the Lord could make all human beings. Be critical, but never partner with defiance. Be happy with who you are, all alone in the silence. Pray without ceasing, but keep your eyes on the system. Always speak up for the weak until somebody listens. Don't marry her if you don't plan to bury her. If you sweep her off your feet and learn how to carry her through thick and thin, you know we gon' hold it down. Hold it down. Through good or bad, you know we gon' stick around. We stick around. We stick around. Yeah, I'm a lover, a provider, I'm a teacher, I'm a fighter. I know there's grace for me even when I'm wrong. Through all my indiscretions and all my imperfections, I'ma love you till the day that I'm gone. How do you spell dad? It goes L-O-V-E. How do you spell dad? It goes L-O-V-E. Baby girl, make sure your king's a better man than me. Hard to believe, I know that might be hard to achieve. You're beautiful, I will always remind you. Never let the coach's idea of beauty define you. Baby girl, don't be easily impressed. Stay clothed in righteousness, cause it's harder to impress them. I'm trying to raise the next Lena Horne, Fannie Lou Hamer, a lady who can bring reform. Be wise and strong, don't be a sidekick for the ride along. Always be humble, whether right or wrong. And know I'll be here when your friends are gone, when your friends are gone. So all my fathers out there, make noise. Hey, to all my fathers out there, make noise. Enjoy. If you want love, then give love. If you need love, then spread love. And spread the love. And spread the love. And spread the love. Spread the love. I'm a lover, a provider, I'm a teacher, I'm a fighter. I know there's grace for me even when I'm wrong. Through all my indiscretions and all my imperfections, I'ma love you till the day that I'm gone. How do you spell dad? It goes L-O-V-E. How do you spell dad? It goes L-O-V. How do you spell dad? It goes L-O-V. Hold up, how do you spell dad? It goes M-E. How do you spell it? It goes M-E. How do you spell it? M-E. Fathers, you're appreciated.
Ministering in the minority-majority context can be lonely, but it doesn't mean that you have to do it without support. You deserve to have resources that take into account where God has called you to lead. We've been there. We started with little support and only a few resources at hand. That's why we spent the last 10 years developing training, frameworks, and content that can help you thrive as a leader.
We call these resources the city syllabus. We are intentionally designing these resources to help everyone from pastors to everyday Christians to become holistic leaders in their context.
Don't lead alone. Don't shortchange your potential. Ditch the leadership solutions that don't work. Integrate relevant and relational resources that speak to your real life issues.
So subscribe to the City Syllabus today and take your next step
to being all God has made you to be so you can do all that God has called you to do.